Jae-hyun's spacecraft shuddered violently as alarms blared in the cockpit. The control panel flickered and sparks flew from the edges of the dashboard. He clenched the controls tightly, his knuckles white, trying to steady the ship. But it was no use. Something had gone horribly wrong during the jump through hyperspace, and now he was falling, fast. The planet below loomed closer with every passing second. It was a strange world, unlike anything Jae-hyun had seen before. Thick forests stretched across its surface, glowing faintly under the light of 3 moons. Rivers shimmered like liquid silver, winding their way through valleys of towering crystalline structures that seemed to hum softly even from space. For a moment, Jae-hyun forgot about the chaos around him and stared in awe at the alien beauty beneath him. But there was no time for wonder. With a final jolt, the spacecraft slammed into the ground, skidding across the surface before coming to a stop. Smoke filled the cockpit, and Jae-hyun coughed as he unbuckled himself from the seat. His head throbbed, and his body ached, but he forced himself to move. Survival depended on it. He stumbled out of the wreckage, taking deep breaths of the cool, fresh air. The sky above was a mix of purples and blues, dotted with stars that twinkled faintly. The 3 moons hung low, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. Jae-hyun looked around, his heart pounding. He was alone, or so he thought. A rustling sound came from nearby bushes. Jae-hyun froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the small laser pistol strapped to his side. Slowly, a figure emerged. It wasn't human. The creature stood tall, taller than any man Jae-hyun had ever seen, with skin that shimmered like polished metal. Its eyes glowed faintly green, and its long limbs moved gracefully despite their size. It carried a staff made of the same crystal material that dominated the planet's terrain. "Who are you?" Jae-hyun asked, his voice trembling slightly. The creature tilted its head, studying him curiously. Then, in broken but understandable English, it spoke. "You, Crashlander, human." "Yes," Jae-hyun replied cautiously. "My ship malfunctioned. I didn't mean to come here." The creature stepped closer, lowering its staff. "I am Kalen, not enemy. You need help?" Relief washed over Jae-hyun, though he remained wary. "Yes, I do. My name is Jae-hyun." Kalen nodded slowly. "Follow me. This place, dangerous." Without waiting for a response, Kalen turned and began walking. Jae-hyun hesitated for a moment, then hurried after him. As they walked, Kalen explained bits and pieces about the planet, which he called Zerathis. It was home to many species, some friendly, others not. The glowing forests were beautiful but treacherous, hiding predators that could blend perfectly with the environment. And then there were the temples, ancient structures scattered across the land, said to hold secrets beyond comprehension. Jae-hyun listened intently, absorbing every word. Despite the strangeness of everything around him, he couldn't shake the feeling that this planet held something important for him. Maybe it was just wishful thinking, a desperate attempt to find meaning in such a random accident. Or maybe it was something more. As they traveled deeper into the forest, and the air grew cooler, and the hum of the crystals became louder, strange creatures flitted between the trees, some glowing faintly, others blending seamlessly with the shadows. Jae-hyun marveled at the sight, but he kept his guard up. Every step felt like it could lead to danger. Eventually, they reached a clearing where a group of aliens had set up camp. They looked similar to Kalen, but varied in size and coloration. Some greeted Kalen warmly while casting curious glances at Jae-hyun. One of them approached, a female with sleek silvery hair and piercing blue eyes. "This is Soo-jin," Kalen introduced. "She is different, like you." Soo-jin smiled faintly. "I'm also human," she said in clear, fluent English. "Been here for years. Got stranded, same as you." Jae-hyun blinked in surprise. "There are other humans here?" Not many, Su-jin admitted. Most don't last long, but I've learned how to survive. If you want to make it, you'll need my help. Grateful for the offer, Jae-hyun accepted. Over the next few hours, Su-jin shared what she knew about Zerathis. She told him about the legends of the ancient sword of Eltharion, a mythical weapon said to be embedded in stone at the heart of the largest temple. According to the stories, no one, not even the strongest warriors or wisest elders, had ever been able to lift it. It's just a myth, Su-jin said dismissively. Don't waste your time chasing fairy tales. But Jae-hyun couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward the story. There was something about it that resonated deep within him, a sense of destiny he couldn't explain. And he decided then and there that he would find the sword, no matter the cost. As night fell, the group settled down around a fire. The flames danced lazily, casting flickering shadows on the faces of those gathered. Jae-hyun stared into the flames, his mind racing with questions. Why had he been drawn to this planet? What did the sword represent? And most importantly, why did he feel like he was meant to play a role in whatever lay ahead? Kalen watched him silently, sensing the turmoil brewing inside the young human. Be careful, he warned. Zerathis tests everyone who comes here. Only the worthy survive. Jae-hyun nodded, determination burning in his chest. Whatever challenges awaited him, he was ready to face them. Little did he know, his journey was only beginning. The fire crackled softly in the quiet night, its orange glow casting long shadows on the ground. Jae-hyun sat close to it, staring into the flames as if searching for answers. His mind was restless, filled with thoughts of the sword Kalen and Su-jin had spoken about earlier. It wasn't just curiosity driving him. It felt like something deeper, a pull he couldn't ignore. Every time he closed his eyes, flashes of the sword appeared in his mind. It called to him, faint but persistent, like a whisper carried by the wind. Su-jin noticed his unease. "You're thinking about the sword, aren't you?" she asked, her voice calm but tinged with concern. Jae-hyun hesitated before nodding. "I can't explain it," he admitted. It's calling me." Kalen frowned, leaning forward slightly. "That is not good," he said. "The sword brings trouble. Many have tried to reach it. None succeed, and only death waits there." But Jae-hyun shook his head. "Maybe they weren't meant to find it. Maybe I am." Su-jin sighed, rubbing her temples. "Listen to yourself, Jae-hyun. You've been here less than a day, and already you're talking about legends like they're real. Trust me, I've been down this road. Chasing myths will get you killed." Her words didn't sway him. If anything, they made him more determined. He stood up abruptly, brushing dirt off his clothes. "I need to see it for myself," he said firmly. "Even if it's dangerous, I have to try." Kalen exchanged a glance with Su-jin, then shrugged. "If you go, we go," he said simply. "Alone, you die." Su-jin groaned, but didn't argue. She knew better than to let Jae-hyun wander off by himself. Reluctantly, she agreed to join them, and though she made it clear she thought the whole thing was foolish. The next morning, they set out toward the temple where the sword was said to be hidden. The journey was long and arduous, taking them through dense forests, across shimmering rivers, and over jagged cliffs. Along the way, Su-jin pointed out dangers, plants that could poison with a single touch, animals that blended perfectly with their surroundings until they struck, and unstable ground that could collapse without warning. Jae-hyun listened carefully, grateful for her knowledge. Despite the challenges, Jae-hyun found himself growing more confident with each step. The feeling of being drawn to the sword only grew stronger, guiding him like an invisible thread pulling him forward. At night, when they stopped to rest, he would lie awake staring at the three moons, replaying the visions in his mind. They were clearer now, showing glimpses of battles fought long ago and faces of people who seemed both familiar and foreign. He began to wonder if the sword held some kind of power, or perhaps a memory that connected to his own past. On the third day of their journey, they encountered trouble. A group of aliens emerged from the trees, blocking their path. Their leader, a tall figure with dark, armored skin and glowing red eyes, stepped forward. His name was Vorthak, and he wasted no time making his intentions clear. "You seek the sword," Vorthak growled, his voice low and menacing. "Turn back! It does not belong to humans!" Jae-hyun squared his shoulders, refusing to show fear. "We're not here to fight," he said. "We just want to see it." Vorthak sneered. "See it? No one sees the sword unless they intend to claim it, and no human is worthy of such power." Tension crackled in the air as Vorthak's followers tightened their grip on their weapons. Kalen stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "There is no need for conflict," he said. "We mean no harm." "Silence!" Vorthak barked. "You side with these outsiders? Traitor!" Before anyone could react, Vorthak lunged at Jae-hyun, his claws glinting in the sunlight. Jae-hyun barely managed to dodge, stumbling backward as Kalen and Soo-jin rushed to intervene. Chaos erupted as the two groups clashed, exchanging blows amidst shouts and the clash of metal against crystal. Jae-hyun scrambled to his feet, grabbing a fallen branch to defend himself. Though untrained in combat, adrenaline fueled his movements, thus allowing him to hold his own against one of Vorthak's minions. Nearby, Soo-jin used her agility to evade attacks, striking back with precision. Kalen fought fiercely, wielding his staff with surprising skill. The battle raged on until Soo-jin spotted an opportunity. "Follow me!" she shouted, leading them toward a narrow ravine. Without hesitation, the trio sprinted after her, dodging rocks and leaping over roots as Vorthak and his followers gave chase. They reached the edge of a steep cliff, the ground crumbling beneath their feet. Jae-hyun's heart raced as he realized they were trapped. But Soo-jin remained calm, quickly scanning the area. Spotting a vine hanging nearby, she grabbed it and swung herself across the gap to the other side. "Come on!" she yelled. One by one, they followed, so narrowly avoiding falling debris as Vorthak roared in frustration. By the time the enemy reached the edge, the trio was already far ahead, disappearing into the forest. Breathing heavily, they finally stopped to rest once they were sure they'd lost their pursuers. Jae-hyun slumped against a tree, his body aching from the fight. "Why did they attack us?" he asked between breaths. "They fear the sword," Kalen explained. "And they fear what it might do if someone unworthy claims it." Soo-jin nodded grimly. "Vorthak isn't wrong to worry. Power like that attracts greed. If the wrong person gets their hands on it, this planet, and maybe even others, could be doomed." Jae-hyun fell silent, considering her words. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Was he chasing the sword for the right reasons? Or was he blinded by arrogance, in thinking he was special? As they continued their journey, the landscape began to change. The glowing forests gave way to rocky plains dotted with massive crystalline spires that hummed louder than ever. In the distance, the silhouette of the temple loomed, a towering structure carved entirely from black crystal that seemed to absorb light itself. Standing at the edge of the plain, Jae-hyun felt a surge of emotion. Fear, excitement, determination, all mingled together in a chaotic swirl. He turned to Kalen and Soo-jin, his expression resolute. "I know this isn't going to be easy," he said, "but I have to try. Whatever the sword is, whatever it wants, I think it chose me for a reason." Kalen looked at him solemnly, while Soo-jin sighed again. Neither argued further. They both knew there was no stopping him now. With renewed resolve, the trio pressed onward, their footsteps echoing against the crystal spires as they approached the temple. Little did they know, the true test of their courage, and Jae-hyun's destiny, was waiting inside. The temple loomed ahead, its black crystal walls shimmering faintly under the light of the three moons. It was massive, far larger than Jae-hyun had imagined. The air around it felt heavy, almost suffocating, as though the structure itself was alive and watching them. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, glowing softly with an eerie blue light. Jae-hyun couldn't understand what they meant, but he could feel their power radiating outward, making the hairs on his arms stand on end. Kalen stopped at the entrance, hesitating. "This is it," he said quietly. "Once we go in, there's no turning back." Jae-hyun nodded, and gripping his makeshift staff tightly. "We've come this far. We can't stop now." Soo-jin adjusted the straps of her pack, her expression serious. "Stay alert," she warned. "These places are full of traps. One wrong step and we're done." With that, they stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, the only source of light coming from the glowing symbols etched into the walls. The hum of energy grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. Jae-hyun felt a strange mix of awe and unease as they moved deeper into the temple, their footsteps echoing in the vast empty space. They soon encountered their first challenge. A wide chasm blocked their path, with no visible way across. On either side of the gap, platforms floated mid-air, shifting positions every few seconds. Each platform bore a different symbol, and some matching those on the walls, others unfamiliar. "This looks like a puzzle," Soo-jin muttered, studying the setup carefully. "We need to figure out which platforms to step on. Get it wrong, and we fall." Kalen frowned, pointing to one of the symbols. "This one. I recognize it. It means strength." Soo-jin nodded. "Good. Let's start with that." She stepped onto the corresponding platform, which immediately locked into place beneath her feet. Encouraged, Kalen followed suit, choosing another symbol that resonated with his culture's teachings. Jae-hyun watched closely, trying to find patterns in the symbols. When it was his turn, he chose instinctively, guided by the same pull he'd felt since arriving on Zerathus. To everyone's relief, the platform stabilized. One by one, they made their way across the chasm, and each choice requiring careful thought and trust in their instincts. By the time they reached the other side, they were all sweating and breathing heavily. But they had succeeded. The next trial tested intelligence. They entered a large chamber filled with floating crystals, each emitting a soft, pulsating light. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a glowing orb atop it. As soon as Jae-hyun approached, the orb projected a holographic image into the air, a complex pattern of interlocking shapes. "You need to recreate the pattern," Soo-jin said, examining the crystals around them. "Each crystal corresponds to part of the design. Align them correctly, and the door will open." It was a daunting task, but Soo-jin's sharp mind quickly took charge. She directed Kalen and Jae-hyun to adjust specific crystals, working together to piece the pattern together. At times, the image would flicker or distort, forcing them to start over. Frustration mounted, but they persisted, determined not to give up. Finally, after what felt like hours, the last crystal clicked into place. The hologram solidified and a hidden door slid open with a low rumble. Exhausted but triumphant, they pressed onward. The final trial was the most personal. They entered a circular room with a single beam of light shining down from the ceiling. Surrounding them were mirrors, each reflecting their own faces back at them. But something was off. The reflections showed not who they were, but who they could become if they gave in to fear, anger, or greed. Jae-hyun stared at his reflection, horrified. Instead of his usual calm demeanor, the mirror showed him consumed by rage, wielding the sword recklessly and destroying everything around him. He staggered back, shaken to his core. Kalen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not let it control you," he said gently. "The mirror shows your fears, but it does not define you." Su-Jin nodded, her own reflection showing her abandoning her friends for selfish gain. "It's testing us," she added. "We have to face these images and reject them." Taking a deep breath, Jae-hyun stepped closer to the mirror again. This time, instead of looking away, he met his reflection's gaze head-on. "I won't become you," he whispered firmly. Slowly, the image began to fade, replaced by a calmer version of himself, holding the sword with purpose rather than malice. Encouraged, Kalen and Su-Jin did the same, confronting their own fears and emerging stronger for it. Now, once all three had passed the test, the mirrors shattered simultaneously, revealing a narrow staircase leading downward. At the bottom of the stairs, they found themselves in the heart of the temple. The room was small but breathtaking, its walls lined with intricate carvings that told stories of battles long past. In the center of the chamber, suspended mid-air, was the ancient sword of Eltharion. It was even more magnificent than Jae-hyun had imagined. The blade gleamed with an inner light, its edges sharp enough to cut through anything. The hilt was wrapped in leather worn smooth by time, and embedded in the pommel was a gemstone that pulsed faintly, as though alive. Surrounding the sword were the skeletal remains of countless beings who had tried and failed to claim it. Kalen stepped forward cautiously, his voice barely above a whisper. "No one has ever lifted it, not even the strongest warriors." Su-Jin crossed her arms, eyeing the sword warily. "And look what happened to them. Are you sure about this?" Jae-hyun didn't answer right away. He walked slowly toward the sword, his heart pounding in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to turn back before it was too late. But the pull, the call, was stronger than ever. It was as if the sword was waiting for him, recognizing him as someone worthy of its power. Reaching out, he grasped the hilt. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a surge of energy coursed through his body, so intense it nearly knocked him off his feet. Visions flooded his mind, faster and clearer than before. He saw ancient civilizations rising and falling, wars fought across stars, and a looming threat that threatened to consume the galaxy. The sword wasn't just a weapon. It was a key, a tool meant to unite and protect. When the visions subsided, Jae-hyun opened his eyes to find Kalen and Su-Jin staring at him in shock. The sword glowed brighter in his hands, responding to his presence. For the first time in history, a living being had claimed the ancient sword of Eltharion. But their victory was short-lived. A loud crash echoed through the temple as Vorthak and his followers burst into the chamber, their weapons drawn. "You dare!" Vorthak roared, his eyes blazing with fury. "That power belongs to no human!" Jae-hyun tightened his grip on the sword, feeling its weight settle comfortably in his hands. He didn't know how to use it yet, but he could sense its potential. It responded to his emotions, and amplifying his resolve and granting him strength. With Kalen and Su-Jin at his side, he prepared to defend what he had earned. The battle that followed was fierce. Vorthak's forces attacked relentlessly, their numbers overwhelming. But Jae-hyun fought with a newfound determination, the sword moving almost effortlessly in his hands. Every swing sent waves of energy rippling outward, knocking enemies back. Kalen and Su-Jin fought alongside him, their combined efforts keeping the attackers at bay. As the fight dragged on, however, Jae-hyun began to feel the toll. Each use of the sword drained him, leaving him weaker and more vulnerable. He knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Thinking quickly, Su-Jin spotted a weak point in the temple's structure. "Over there!" she shouted, pointing to a section of the wall supported by unstable crystals. "If we collapse it, we can trap them." Without hesitation, Jae-hyun swung the sword with all his remaining strength, channeling its power into a single devastating blow. The impact shattered the crystals, causing the ceiling to cave in. Rocks tumbled down, sealing off the entrance and trapping Vorthak and his followers inside. Exhausted but victorious, Jae-hyun sank to his knees, the sword still clutched tightly in his hands. Kalin and Soo-jin rushed to his side, helping him to his feet. "You did it," Soo-jin said, her voice filled with equal parts awe and disbelief. "You actually did it." Jae-hyun managed a weak smile, his mind already racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The sword had chosen him, but with its power came responsibility. Whatever destiny awaited him, he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't face it alone. Dust filled the air as rocks continued to settle, sealing Vorthak and his followers inside the collapsed section of the temple. Jae-hyun leaned heavily on the sword, his body trembling from exhaustion. Each swing of the blade had drained him, leaving him weak and disoriented. But despite the fatigue, he could still feel its power humming faintly in his hands, a constant reminder of what he now carried. Kalin knelt beside him, concern etched on his face. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Jae-hyun shook his head slowly, though every muscle in his body screamed in protest. "I'm fine," he said, though the words sounded unconvincing even to himself. "Just tired." Soo-jin crouched nearby, examining the sealed entrance. "That should hold them for a while," she said, brushing dust off her hands. "But we can't stay here. They'll find another way out sooner or later." Jae-hyun nodded, forcing himself to stand. The sword felt heavier now, its glow dimmer than before. He glanced at it, wondering if it was reacting to his weakened state. "We need to leave," he agreed. "But where do we go from here?" Kalin stood up, looking around the chamber. "The temple is unstable. We must get clear of it before more collapses happen." He pointed toward a narrow passage leading upward. "That way might take us outside." Without waiting for further discussion, they began moving again, their steps slow and deliberate. Jae-hyun struggled to keep pace, each step feeling like a monumental effort. The sword's weight seemed to grow with every passing moment, as though it was testing his resolve. Yet he refused to let go of it. That something deep inside told him that abandoning the sword now would mean losing everything he had fought for. As they climbed higher, the hum of energy grew louder, resonating through the walls. Jae-hyun paused briefly, leaning against the cool crystal surface. His mind raced with questions. What exactly was this sword? Why had it chosen him? And why did using it come at such a cost? Soo-jin noticed his hesitation and stopped beside him. "You're thinking too much," she said gently. "Whatever the sword is, it picked you for a reason. Focus on surviving first. Answers can come later." Her words brought some comfort, but they didn't erase the unease gnawing at him. Every time he used the sword, it felt like a piece of him was being taken away, his strength, his energy, maybe even his soul. Was this truly worth it? And they finally reached the exit, emerging into the open air. The three moons hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape. The temple loomed behind them, its once majestic structure now partially ruined. Jagged cracks ran along its surface, and faint tremors suggested it wouldn't last much longer. "We should put some distance between us and this place," Soo-jin said, scanning the horizon. "If Vorthak survives, he'll be angrier than ever." Kalin nodded in agreement. "There's a safe zone not far from here. We can regroup there." Jae-hyun followed silently, his thoughts consumed by the visions he'd seen when he first grasped the sword. Ancient civilizations, interstellar wars, and a looming cosmic threat, all connected somehow to the weapon in his hands. It wasn't just a tool for battle, it was a symbol of unity, meant to bring together those willing to stand against darkness. But how could he convince others to trust him, to trust a human wielding such immense power? Even Kalin and Soo-jin seemed unsure, their expressions guarded whenever they looked at the sword. Jae-hyun understood their hesitation. If roles were reversed, he might feel the same way. Hours passed as they trekked across the rocky plains. Jae-hyun's strength gradually returned, though the sword remained a burden both physical and mental. At one point, he considered setting it down, just for a moment, to rest. But the instant the thought crossed his mind, the blade pulsed faint. The safe zone was a small settlement nestled in a valley surrounded by towering crystalline spires. It was home to a mix of alien species who had banded together for survival, in sharing resources and knowledge to endure the harshness of Jarathis. When Jae-hyun, Kaylin, and Soo-jin arrived, they were greeted with cautious curiosity. News of the sword spread quickly, and whispers followed them wherever they went. Jae-hyun sat alone on a hill overlooking the settlement, the sword resting across his lap. Its glow had dimmed further, mirroring his own weariness. He stared at it, turning it over in his hands as if trying to decipher its secrets. The visions he'd seen still haunted him, images of battles fought among the stars, and a shadowy force threatening to consume everything. Whatever that force was, it wasn't confined to this planet. It was something bigger, something universal. Kaylin approached quietly, sitting beside him without saying a word. For a long time, they simply watched the horizon, at the three moons casting their soft light over the land. Finally, Kaylin broke the silence. "You carry a great burden," he said softly. "But you are not alone." Jae-hyun glanced at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," he admitted. "Every time I use the sword, it takes something from me." "What happens when there's nothing left?" Kaylin placed a hand on his shoulder. "Strength is not measured by how much you have left to give, but by how far you're willing to go. The sword chose you because it saw something in you that others cannot see. Trust in that." His words brought a small measure of comfort, though doubt still lingered. Jae-hyun looked out at the settlement below, where Soo-jin was speaking with some of the locals. They listened intently, nodding occasionally as she explained what had happened in the temple. Despite her earlier skepticism, she had become an advocate for Jae-hyun, helping him gain the trust of those around them. Over the next few days, Jae-hyun began to understand the true purpose of the sword. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a beacon, a symbol of hope for a fractured world. The legends surrounding it weren't meant to inspire fear, but unity. The ancient civilization that created it had faced a threat so vast that no single species could stand against it alone. The sword was designed to bring together those willing to fight for a common cause. With this realization came a decision. Jae-hyun knew he couldn't return to Earth. Not yet. There was work to be done here, alliances to forge and preparations to make. Yeah, if the looming threat he'd seen in the visions was real, then Jarathis would need every ally it could find. He gathered Kaylin and Soo-jin one evening, the three of them sitting around a small fire. "I've made up my mind," he said firmly. "I'm staying." Soo-jin raised an eyebrow. "You're sure about this? You'd be giving up your chance to go home?" "I don't think I was ever meant to leave," Jae-hyun replied. "This planet, the sword, it's all part of something bigger, something I can't ignore." Kaylin nodded slowly. "If you stay, I will help you. Many here already respect you for what you did in the temple. With time, they will follow." "And I'll stay too," Soo-jin added, surprising both of them. "Someone has to keep you two out of trouble." A small smile crossed Jae-hyun's face. For the first time since arriving on Jarathis, he felt a sense of belonging. Together, they began reaching out to the other species in the settlement, sharing stories of the sword and its purpose. Slowly but surely, they started building bridges between factions that had once been divided. Vorthak and his followers eventually resurfaced, their hatred for Jae-hyun burning brighter than ever. But instead of attacking outright, they watched from the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Jae-hyun knew they wouldn't stop until the sword was theirs, or destroyed, but he refused to let fear dictate his actions. In the weeks that followed, Jae-hyun trained tirelessly, learning to harness the sword's power without letting it consume him. Each use still took a toll, but he grew stronger with practice, finding balance between his own strength and the sword's energy. Kalin taught him about the planet's history and culture, while Soo-jin helped him strategize ways to unite its people. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jae-hyun stood atop a hill overlooking the settlement. The sword rested in his hand, its glow steady and calm. Behind him, Kalin and Soo-jin stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. "We're not ready yet," Jae-hyun said, his voice filled with determination. "But we will be." The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But for the first time, Jae-hyun felt prepared to face it, not as a lone survivor, but as a leader. Whatever threats awaited beyond the stars, he knew he wouldn't face them alone. As the wind swept through the valley, carrying with it the hum of the crystals, Jae-hyun turned toward the horizon, and his grip tightening on the sword. His journey was far from over, but he was ready to take the next step.